messy, and fool.
Let's do this thing.
However it finds you, love is love. This month of love, watch love your way.
It's Valentine's month. We reunite sports lovers to fall in love with the beautiful game.
Happy Valentine's month!
And they have a lot to say. Sending a lot of love.
To all of you! Hashtag we love it, yeah!
We bring you sportstainment at its best. Yes, indeed. SABC Sport wishes you a happy Valentine's month.
Keep watching SABC Sport!
A new home for the heart of the nation.
Pittiger as 'n lekker chakalaka brand is na. And we're not taking your money, we're talking your money, your hustle and your timeline.
Unfiltered, unscripted, and totally us. Sauda and Click.
Let's connect on SABC2.
SABC2, Monday to Friday, 4:30 p.m. For more, go to SABC Plus.
Lekker day.
My name is Nkateko Shibambu. I am a hard-working, salt of the earth, good man, honest man, humble man in the community of Paradise. He's a lover. And I also have an uncle that lives with me, who I have a very interesting and sometimes entertaining relationship with. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA.
Today is the end. I want that contract.
There's a fire up the road. Get these vehicles out of the way.
Fire? Where's the fire? I didn't see a fire. Did you guys see a fire anywhere here?
Look, Kelsey, you either get out of the way or we're going through you.
Hey, I want to give you a little advice. Fighting fires can be very, very dangerous.
We're going through them.
Why does this guy Kelsey want this fire contract so badly?
It costs me a lot to build up a hard-working professional fire company. My men and I are willing to lay it on the line every time out. Now, Tri-State may be bigger and they may have newer equipment, but I doubt that they're very big in the dedication department.
Catch the 18, weekdays at 12 on S3.
The impact of the Black experience on television is undeniable. But for Black Americans, getting here has been anything but simple. In the beginning, we either weren't on the screen at all, or we were, but in ways that weren't truly us. The good news? Black America is now showing up big time on the small screen. And our unapologetic presence is not only influencing the Black community, but is celebrated by everyone who owns or watches a TV.
My agent said, I really hate to say this to you, but they said you weren't Black enough.
Black Pop, Sunday, 9:30 on SABC2.
I'm Johnny Clegg on my journey through South Africa to find the landscapes that have inspired artists' imaginations over the centuries. This week I'll be turning off the long, dry, desolate stretch of the N1 highway to discover some of the rich surprises that the Karoo keeps secret.
To perform on the Karoo is like really breaking a big silence that exists about South African life.
From the resonance of ancient gong rocks, this is rock and roll, to the alluring sounds of storytellers, from wise, eccentric seers to inspired eccentric spaces, from shimmering art pieces to glittering performers. And from its veiled threats of loneliness in the Valley of Desolation, all the way down to the mythical valley called DL.
Certainly wasn't easy getting down here.
I'll be making my way through these strange, hidden places to uncover their hidden treasures in a country imagined. The N1 highway, South Africa's national road, runs roughly through the center of the country. For most that have traveled its long distance, it's a type of transitional space. It's the line connecting our place of departure to our end destination. Over the last few decades, the N1 has rightfully wound its way into the art of the Karoo, since for most South Africans, it is the single most recognizable and defining characteristic that marks this land. The hypnotic and ever-growing stretch of black tar reaching out to meet the sky on the horizon. This is the perspective that anyone driving from Johannesburg to Cape Town has driving through the Karoo. Miles and miles of monotonous, endless space. Now and again you'll see mountains in the distance, maybe a wind pump and a few sheep dotted on the landscape, but it's all the same. And that's what makes the journey seem so endless. But so much has been written and painted and photographed and interpreted in this Karoo landscape that there must be something more than meets the eye. Some kind of elusive quality that you can't see out of a car window. And I think we have to go much deeper to find it. A region that starts in the southern Free State and arrives in the Western Cape, as well as edging into the Eastern and Northern Cape, the Karoo is a vast dry basin that spans over 400,000 square kilometers of semi-desert land. The most immediate impact that the Karoo has on you is the silence. Different landscapes give off different kinds of silence. Some landscapes are characterized by a brooding silence. Some of them are even slightly sinister. And the Karoo is different because it seems to say that in this vast emptiness, there's a place for you, but you have to understand something. You have to submit yourself, give yourself over, and something will happen. It's also a landscape that is so vast, you are forced to look onto the horizon, and it is empty. It's an emptiness that is both inviting and frustrating, one that has tormented and inspired artists for centuries. It's an emptiness that is ultimately fulfilling. An artist whose work has used the empty spaces of the Karoo for much of his career is Strydom van der Merwe. He calls himself a land artist and essentially uses the materials from the site he is working in to create these temporary sculptural forms in the open land. Here, the landscape is much more than a canvas or a platform. It becomes the work itself. Van der Merwe's clean geometric forms refocus our attention back onto their environments, making the relationship between land, space and sky the principal subject.
As in any art form or in visual art form, the line is the most first important drawing line that you make, and then it depends on how the line is developing after that. And I've chosen to use it in a minimal way.
Why do you come to this particular landscape?
There's just this wide open spaces, but the Karoo is just like a big wide open canvas to work on. But working in a landscape, then obviously you are aware of how do you read a landscape and how do you see a landscape. And if you would look at the map, it consists of contour lines, and I think that's why I always like to use lines in the landscape. And also there's that link towards ley lines and energy lines that run in the earth.
And you put all this time and all this energy, and you're going to walk away, and you're going to leave it here. What do you feel leaving it behind?
No, I've done what I came out to do, and I've created this work, and the enjoyment that I got from that's fantastic. But what I do is I have to take a photo, obviously, because I have to have something that I can show. A record of what I did. And so, but also as a land artist, and if you work in a landscape, you're sensitive towards the cycles in nature, and you want to do something with the landscape and not working against the landscape. So for me it's okay if the wind comes up and it blows it away, and it changes by tomorrow and then it's there forever, and nothing is permanent.
Of course, beyond the physical dimensions of space and time, there is another crucial dimension to the Karoo landscape. This is the emotional or inner landscape. Poet Sandile Dikeni was born in the Karoo town of Victoria West and has drawn inspiration from this landscape.
Baby, I want to take you on a journey to the desert, and from the cushions of my lap, the landscape will lap the beauty of your flying hair. And lambs ruminating will echo the silence of journeys. And the windows, and our eyes open, will be tickets to destinations further than the knock on the door or garments on the floor. This naked landscape needs water for that lone flower that must decorate your hair.
Sandile, you grew up in the Karoo.
I was born in the 60s in the Karoo, and you know the 60s was not a very good time in South Africa. Yes. And I just couldn't see that, because I could see the beauty of this landscape, and I was very proud that I'm growing in a place called South Africa. Not that I knew the rest of South Africa, I only knew these desolate velds, these beautiful sheep grazing in the fields, and the silence was beautiful. It made you think much more deeper about life and things like that.
How does the landscape talk to you for your poetry?
To do poem on the Karoo is like really breaking a big silence that exists about South African life. We are not all about politics and Mandela and those people. We are also about beauty, serenity, placidness, and sleeping under the beautiful stars that the Karoo can offer.
My name is Nkate Bambu. I am a hard-working, salt of the earth, good man, honest man, humble man in the community of Paradise. He's a lover. And I also have an uncle that lives with me, who I have a very interesting and sometimes entertaining relationship with. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA.
ready. Go! The heat is on the island of St. Marie for a Christmas cracker of a crime. 3 men and a lot of cars. Join the boys for an adventure of a lifetime. However, if misadventure of a lifetime is more your thing, pack your bags with the hilarious Ramesh Ranganathan. The one and only Alicia Keys performs live from the City of Angels. Speaking of angels, keep up the faith with the church's greatest detective. Celebrate the festive season at New York's most famous hotel. Reflect on the early and later years of the starman himself, David Bowie. An officer is framed for a crime he didn't commit, but don't worry, he escapes to uncover the truth. A flabbergasted Van Fogel leaves the modern world behind. The guilty are brought to justice in true Parisian fashion with France's most stylish sleuth. Or the Caribbean with Simon Reeve, who loves to mention he's in the Caribbean.
The Caribbean.
A young socialite befriends a passenger who mysteriously disappears. The hunt for Scotland's most notorious serial killer is on. Discover the surprising stories behind your favourite Christmas carols. Say hello to the Icon Hotel performing live from London. TV that takes your breath away. This summer with BBC Primetime, only on S3.
It's Valentine's month. We reunite sports lovers to fall in love with the beautiful game.
Happy Valentine's month!
And they have a lot to say. Sending a lot of love.
To all of you! Hashtag we love it, yeah!
We bring you sportstainment at its best. Yes, indeed. SABC Sport wishes you a happy Valentine's month.
Keep watching SABC Sport.
There are two roles a landscape plays in an artist's work. First as a subject, how it's described, how it's depicted and expressed. And secondly as a muse, how it inspires the artist. And we've come all the way to the Valley of Desolation outside Graaff-Reinet to see how the same landscape can be expressed in different ways. Starting with this monolithic rock formation behind me. It makes sense that British-born William Timlin, one of the most significant fantasy illustrators of the 1920s era, would have been attracted to this site. In this beautiful etching entitled The Valley of Desolation, we see Timlin using all of his creative passions to portray the mountain's bold and unique structure. The mountain is dramatically framed with a type of aura or halo. Timlin sees the landscape as a source of mystery and magic, much like Francis Slater in his poem Graaff-Reinet. Hard by, isolation's veil yawns to greet the screaming gale. Their colossal pillars rise, shoring up the sagging skies. Rude, fantastic, piled up stones, like monstrous dragons' mouldering bones. Ruins where the eye might see relics of the lost Nineveh. Perhaps the best known artwork this valley has ever produced is the painting Graaff-Reinet by J.H. Pierneef. Many of Pierneef's paintings glorify the landscape. Here too, the spectacular rock formation is framed by a clouded halo and exaggerated vertical lines. The symmetry of the composition gives the landscape a sense of timeless, awe-inspiring grandeur. There is one writer who has towered above all others when it comes to expressing the Karoo. Her name is Olive Schreiner, and her novel, Story of an African Farm, was responsible for first bringing this landscape to an international audience. Schreiner lived in several Karoo towns in her lifetime, and her descriptions of the landscape were drawn from these experiences. The African farm in question was not based on one particular region of the Karoo, but represents a small universe, a microcosm embedded and isolated in a vast space that is the Karoo landscape. Here on the outskirts of Hanover, there remains one of the many Karoo dwellings where Schreiner lived and wrote. The full African moon poured down its light from the blue sky into the wide, lonely plain. The dry, sandy earth with its coating of stunted Karoo bushes a few inches high, the low hills that skirted the plain, the milk bushes with their long, finger-like leaves, were all touched by a weird and almost oppressive beauty as they lay in the white light. Schreiner's beautiful and evocative descriptions of the Karoo make her one of the first proponents of writing the landscape, a rich literary tradition of the 20th century. She's the first writer to introduce to an international audience words like veld, Karoo, and koppie. Francois, you came down here about, 18 months ago, and you bought Olive Schreiner's house.
Yes.
Why particularly that house?
Well, I'm not a great fan of Schreiner.
Right.
She's quite boring. Okay. But she's a noble person.
And did she do any writing here that you know of?
Yes, but she, at that stage, was interested in democracy and women's votes. She wasn't writing fiction. She founded something called Votes for Women in South Africa.
Oh, yes.
Then they kicked her out because she insisted it be for black and white women.
That's fantastic.
She's a bit of a freedom fighter. Not only did she support the Boers when they were underdog, but she always supported the blacks and the coloreds. She liked human beings. She didn't care, which is quite visionary if you think of the 19th century.
That's amazing. This Karoo landscape is timeless, at least 250 million years old. Homo sapiens has been around some 200,000 years. It was just a blink in that time period. And it begs the question, who were the first people to live here and make their mark and claim this landscape as their own? Here in Nelspruit, we find these distinctive shimmering rocks whose shiny black surfaces have been caused by their metallic properties. These sand engravings, some as old as 10,000 years, were created using a variety of picking and scraping techniques, revealing a lighter toned stone underneath. These rocks were not only used as a canvas for the sand to proclaim their presence and record their visions, they were also used as musical instruments. And here we have the famous gong rocks, or otherwise known as Bushman's Klavier. Iron stone which, when hit with another stone, produces the most amazing sound, very clear bell-like tone. Let's give it a go. How's that? This is rock and roll. Here is a fascinating rock with multiple engravings, a kind of a visitor's book. Very early San depictions of antelope and a sacred rain animal, with the overlay of antique settler graffiti dating to around about 1800s. The settlers, of course, who arrived here with a notion of conquering, mastering and taming the land and owning it, which led to the total extinction of the Bushman culture and way of life. In recent times, a new cultural event on the Karoo landscape has marked a return to a similar relationship with the land first characterized by the sand. Africa Burn calls itself a creative arts and freedom of expression festival that aims to build a temporary community through collaborative art projects in a completely non-commercial environment. Festival goers are encouraged to collaborate, cooperate and freely add to the astounding large-scale interactive art installations. Central to the ethos of this festival is that it creates no permanent structures on the landscape. It is a celebration of the land that is shared communally, rather than demarcated, claimed or owned by the individual or artist, and leaves no traces of its presence behind.
Next time.
Daddy, not Paddington Bear.
Stop him going stale. The teams fight to gain an advantage.
Ooh, it's difficult to second guess what everybody's doing.
Opportunities there.
Woo! Oh my God, Dad.
From the edge of the Arctic
Who gets to do this?
to the shores of the Great Lakes.
This is what dreams are bloody made of, isn't it?
Whatever keeps you in a good mood.
Race Across the World, Thursday at 6 on S3.
Zanzi, the smoothest reality TV show, Tropica Island of Treasure Zanzibar, has been nominated at the National Film and Television Awards under the Best Competition Show category. And we need your help to win. All you gotta do is head on over to nationalfilmacademy.com, you register and you vote for Tropica Island of Treasure Zanzibar under the Best Competition Show category. Voting closes on the 20th of November and the awards show is on the 22nd of November, where we can be the best competition show for Tropica Island of Treasure Zanzibar.
Started my day in Club Guys. There's a huge big guy. He grabbed me, you see, and in the softest of voices, he's help. I'm like, hey, but I'm not your therapist. Oh. And then he whips out 2 suitcases. And he says, choose one to seal the deal. And then, boom! And a Shanda Power detective shows up.
This is a drug bust.
Next thing I know, the news crew was in my face.
What is the dwellings?
You know me, a block fan on say Yamal. And then a kid starts following me around like she's looking for his stepfather. And this time, sits on my legs like this. As if,
Hey, waar is my cunt?
as if I kidnapped her. I hope she didn't follow you home.
We are here on the farm of Driefontein, one of the best remaining examples of the earliest farm settlements in the Karoo. And standing here, one really gets a sense of the incredible sheer force of will and stubborn determination it must have taken to survive under these conditions. The intersection of the land with human vulnerability is a favorite subject of the art of the Karoo. Pranas Domsaitis and Maurice van Esch both use color to express emotion and long sweeping brushstrokes to evoke the power of the landscape, rendering the small human structures utterly vulnerable. Imagine the first trek Boers arriving in this vast, empty, treeless landscape and having to make a life. All the landscape offers you up are stones. And behind me you have a corbelled house. And these little houses were there only for protection at night and to keep your valuables. The rest of your life, you lived outside. You prepared your food, you cooked your food, you washed your clothing, you threshed the wheat here in this threshing floor. You built kilometers of waist-high walls with these stones to keep your livestock protected. The amount of effort and energy to keep going every day is phenomenal, and one can only look back at these times and these people and wonder at that amazing resilience. One of the most precious and sought-after commodities of the Karoo was, and still is, water. For the earliest inhabitants, survival in the Karoo meant constantly relocating their existence according to the seasonal availability of water. By the 1860s, a sophisticated new machine made its arrival in the Karoo, a major technological advancement which became a permanent fixture on the landscape and completely transformed the way in which people could live on the land. Can you guess what it is? The arrival of the wind pump caused a revolution in Karoo lifestyle, as it suddenly became possible to settle permanently in one location all year round. Today, these rusty contraptions evoke a romantic nostalgia for the desert, and its shape is synonymous with the Karoo. It is not surprising that the tension between the dry landscape and the ever-present need for water has been a central theme in much of the artwork we find here. Ben Kudavidi's windmill sets up this tension by painting only the image of a long shadow of a windmill on the dry ground. By doing this, he evokes both a longing for the water that the wind pump represents and gives us a sense of the sharp Karoo sun overhead. An artist known for his exploration of the detail of the Karoo landscape is Jacobus Kloppers. In these two works, the water in the reservoir is painted in bright turquoise, in stark contrast to the concrete dam. Yet the sky reflected in the water sets up another sharp Karoo moment, the contrast between the vast space and the vast sky. There's some dispute over the origins of the word Karoo, but essentially the meaning is dry, arid and hard, which is what we humans know it as. But this landscape is some 250 million years old, and many things have happened and changed over that time. The Karoo Basin was in fact once an inland sea, and if you know where to look, there's evidence that it was once a marshland. In 1968, on a farm called Gansfontein in the Karoo Hoogland municipality, a dam burst on that farm, and it washed away a layer of sediment and revealed these footprints here. And they filled with water, and the farmer thought that they were the footprints of a very large lizard. In fact, these go back some 250 million years. They're actually pre-dinosaur dinosaurs, dinocephalians. Isn't that fantastic? The vast and mysterious Swartberg Mountains reoccur time and again as a favorite subject of Karoo painting. These mountains form a massive boundary between the Great Karoo and the coast, which meant that for centuries traveling to the Karoo was a grueling and time-consuming task. The result is what has become the Karoo's most prominent and recurring theme: isolation. Look at this incredible circular rock formation, and it's caused by the fact that the Earth's crust consists of these massive moving plates, and when they collide with titanic force, this crumpling effect takes place. If you can imagine pushing a carpet with your foot and getting the first fold, but then keep the pressure on, and you get a fold on top of a fold, and that's exactly what we see here in the Swartberg. This mountain range is the gateway to one of the most remote and mysterious parts of the country. If you turn off the spectacular Swartberg Pass and head deep into the crevice of the Gamka Valley, you'll arrive at a settlement rather ominously called Die Hel. Wow, what a trip. Certainly wasn't easy getting down here. And to think that people lived here long before a road was ever built and lived here in total and complete isolation and cut off from the rest of the world. You can get a sense of why this place is called DL. The story is a number of wandering Trekboer families had made their way onto the edge of the Great Plains of the Karoo, trying to leave behind the tax collector and the British. And one night their cattle wandered down the Gamka River Gorge into this valley, and they tracked their cattle and followed them and found this place and remained here for 180 years in total isolation. Over the years, DL has inspired many tales of inbreeding and savagery. In Andre Brink's novel Duivelskloof, we meet a host of characters inspired by these legends. A man who spends his whole life trying to fly, a woman who drove a stake through her husband's head, a savage who fathered 17 children on the grave of his enemy, a girl who gave her own body as ransom for her father's life, the dead and the living celebrating a new year together. In 1966 and later in 1968, the photographer David Goldblatt was fortunate enough to photograph the community of DL. In these images, Goldblatt gives us a very different perspective to that of Brink and pays tribute to a community that was shaped by the natural environment and its landscape.
Basically, Juanita is in everybody's business. She's here, she's there, she's here, she's there. She flirts with somebody. They come, they flirt with her. Woo, woo, she likes it. She's best friends with Rochelle. She's a fashionista, so she's always like, ooh, ooh, ooh. She has a son, his name is Richie, but he's very naughty. He drives her insane. Live in every beat, the pulse of South Africa. Why?
I started my day in Club Gugas. There's a huge big guy. He grabbed up, you see, and in the softest of voices, he's hell. I'm like, to therapist. Oh. And then he whips out 2 suitcases. And he says, choose one to seal the deal. And then, boom! And Shanda Power detective shows up.
This is a drug bust.
Next thing I know, the news crew was in my face.
What is the dwellings?
You know me, a blog fan on say Yamal. And then the kid starts following me around like she's looking for a stepfather. And this time, he sits on my legs like this. As if,
Hey, waar is my cunt?
as if I kidnapped her. How to even follow home?
To the average traveller, there is a distinct uniformity in the shape of a Karoo town, with its rows of single-story houses ordered around the obligatory church steeple. This shape is epitomized by the town of Prince Albert, a favorite subject of Ben Kutavides, one of the most prominent landscape artists working in the Karoo. In this work, the Karoo town takes on a kind of huddled humanity, existing in nostalgic harmony with the natural terrain that surrounds it. In contrast to the traditional perspective of landscape painting, contemporary photography has cast a much more critical eye on the Karoo landscape. Mikhail Subotsky, in a recent study of Beaufort West, gives us a picture that is a far cry from the sleepy, insulated town that we would expect to find. In these images, a different set of rules is governing rural life. Here the natural landscape is drained of its nourishing value. It has long ceased to support the lives of its inhabitants and serves as a cold, alienating backdrop to the unnerving dysfunction of its subjects. The vast open space of the Karoo ensures that there are some traditions to live on. Kariki Mensa are nomadic families of sheep shearers who for generations have called the open road their home. In this work by H.J. von Michaelis, we are presented with a romantic and idealized vision of the Kariki Mensa. The reality of this life, however, is quite different.
Ek het nie maklik groot geword. Lekker groot geword, ek het zwaar groot geworden. My pa moes maar my was op die skier geloop. Was 'n skierder geweest, handskier, skaapskier. Voor my pa groot, my ma groot gemaak en draad gespan. Vandag op die plaas 'n bietjie, môre op daai plaas. En so met verloop van tyd het die lewe daar so verander. My kinders het nou in geval 'n beter lewe as wat ek gehad. Onthou dat is iets wat vroeger begin het. Dat is die eerste beginsel geweest. Tot die wit mense het ook gery. In die begin. Tot die wit mense ook met hulle gery. Pere, karre, donkie, karre. So hulle onthou, dat is iets wat in die lewe begin het, waar jou ryding vanaf gekom het. Tot waar ons vandaag staan.
An artist who stems from the lineage of the Kariki Mensa is Ota Lapis. Born under a horse cart, Ota Lapis spent many years following a nomadic lifestyle before settling here next to the train track on Prince Albert Road.
Ek het geluister, eers geluister en toe het ek gehoor. Ek luister eers, dan kom die klank toe hoor ek. En toe ek gehoor het, toe sê die oor vir die hart. Vir die hart, die oor praat met die hart. En die hart praat weer met die hart praat weer met hierdie.
The incredible remoteness of the Karoo makes it an ideal feeding ground for what is sometimes referred to as outsider or intuitive artists. These are self-taught artists who create their work in isolation, seemingly unaffected by the influence and trends of the mainstream art world.
I'm a poor man, but I'm not poor. I'm not a poor nuisance. I must eat and have everything. How can I make something out of nothing? Ek is lewe se baas. Lewe is my baasie. Lewe skuld my niks en ek skuld hom ook niks. Something out of nothing.
We're here in the Karoo, and what does the Karoo mean for you?
Someday windy like now.
Yes.
Someday cold.
Yes.
Someday 40 degrees hot. En die Karoo kom die soetste heuning. En die Karoo kom die beste, die soetste vrugte, nie net soet nie, maar die beste vrugte. Maar vir my die Karoo hometown. En die Karoo maak my dink dan what can I do? How can I have money tomorrow? Or I haven't got food and money. I got a little piece like this and I got something like that to sell.
In Ota Lapis, we see a blurring of the line between philosopher and artist.
Lewe is mooi, maak hom mooier. Lewe is mooi. Hierdie is my lewe. My uitgangspunt.
He strives to give expression to his inner landscape in everything he does.
The poor people, you playing with religion, with God, you're going to be punished. En nie jy alleen nie of ek nie, maar ook die kind en die kind se kind. Ja.
Geographical isolation leads to cultural isolation. And in the vast expanses of this timeless Karoo, we find that things change very slowly. And we've come all the way to Brandtvlei here to give you a very special, real, cultural Karoo relic.
Dit wat ons nou doen, dit is soos ek hom geleer het. En dit is die regte sandskop. Ons skop sand, ons skop. Dit is sandskop. Ons het dus nog groot geword. Hy het ons kinders mos skaap opgepas. Agter die skaap die bokke. Nou daar het ons geleer, ons laat een slaat die drum, die ander een speel die rammetjie en ander een speel die gitaar. Dit is soos ek het geleer. Kom, dit was ons Kersfees dan. Ons het hom gevat van Kersfees af, ons dans die Kersfees dwars deur. Ons dans tot die son uitkom. Nou so het ons die reel het ek hom geleer ken. En op my grootjies het my so gewees, toe ek my verstand kon kry, toe dans my oupa die reel. My ouma het hom gedans. En dit was vir ons iets om lekker te wees. Ons het dit ons daarin geniet.
Daar sê jy. Beautiful. The town of New Bethesda remained a forgotten outpost nestled amongst the Kompasberg Mountains, so far off the beaten track that it seemed as if the 20th century had passed it by. And so it would have remained had it not been for an extraordinary artist who had the courage to give expression to her inner landscape, and a world-famous playwright who was deeply inspired by her story. It all began here in this unassuming little house on the edge of the town where Helen Martins, otherwise known as Miss Helen, lived. Having never married, Martins found herself living alone after the death of her father. Shunned by her pious and conservative neighbors, Martins' isolation prompted her to transform her environment into an intricate universe of her own imaginings. As you step out into this section called the Camel Yard, you're struck by a collection of magical and spiritual representations, all facing east and hands uplifted. It looks like there's a deep spiritual yearning that's going on here. This is my favorite sculpture in the garden. It's two figures trying to pull back the hands of a clock, trying to arrest time and turn back the clock. This seems to point to the fact that there were perhaps things that happened in her life that are irrevocable, maybe dark things, which she cannot undo. At the age of 78, battling with arthritis and failing eyesight, Martins took her life. Sadly, Helen Martins' artistic achievements were not recognized in her lifetime. The locals who peered over the wall of the owl house regarded it as an embarrassing eyesore, the ramblings of a mad woman. That is until a famous South African playwright, Athol Fugard, heard about her story. The road to my Mecca was one I had to travel alone. It was a journey on which no one could keep me company. And because of that, there was only me at the end of it. My Mecca is finished, and with it, the only real purpose my life ever had. Fugard's play about her life and solitary creative journey caused an astonishing international fascination with the Owl House and turned New Bethesda itself into a creative hub and cultural mecca for artists across the world. Over the years, countless city dwellers have adopted the Karoo as their spiritual home. The remote emptiness of the Karoo landscape offers an escape from the pressures of urban conformity, a wide open space where one can follow one's desires. When did the drag performance start?
It's very interesting how that began, because we always did a very classic sort of show in the past. I'd play classical pieces and Jacques would sing songs from the musicals, etc., etc. And we had a guest who booked the hotel out for a New Year's party, and she requested a cross-dressing party for that night.
What made you just get up and come out into the middle of the Karoo from an urban sort of lifestyle?
Well, let me say this to you. We didn't choose the Karoo chose us. Because when we were living in Tilburg after we both retired, we saw in a local newspaper there that a hotel in the Eastern Cape for sale. And we both just was very curious and jumped in the car and come and have a look. And when we come around the dust corner there, and we just saw this building, and we both fell in love with it. And we just decided there and then, this is our home. We're going to buy it.
Having now lived out here for a while, how do you guys experience the landscape that you're in?
Well, actually, it's all about space, because we are so conditioned to live in little shoeboxes, to be compartmentalized in every aspect of life. And you come out here and there is limitless space. And this really affects your whole mentality. It affects your whole way of thinking.
Another city dweller who discovered purpose and fulfillment in the Karoo landscape is author and raconteur Antoinette Pienaar. She moved back to her native Karoo to apprentice under Oom Johannes, a herbalist and sheep herder in the area. Although they met for the first time 7 years ago, both had premonitions long before that their paths would eventually cross.
Toe het ek gedroom van die meisie wat ek gaan eendag hier so leer met die kruiing. Maar toe hy het toe sy nou nog maar klein. Sy is nog nie mens eintlik gewees nie. En toe het ek nou toe ek nou hier kom, toe sal ek nou sien uit die een, hy kom nooit uit en ek sal ook lyk my nooit een kry wat kan leer van wat wil kom leer nie. En dan sien ek net al die ryding val weg en hy bly weg en dan sê ek kom nou weer 'n slag nader.
Toe ek by die oom kom was dit aanvanklik vir 30 dae dat ek kan gesond word en toe ek nou eers begin gesond word, toe dink ek maar ek wil mos leer van die ding. Want as klein dogtertjie, ek is een van 5 susters, ry my ma met ons om te gaan kuier, dan moet almal nou 'n liedjie sing en dan moet jy sê, wat gaan jy nou eendag doen as jy groot is? Die ene dokter en daai een, en as hulle my gevra het, ek het gesê, maar ek gaan in die veld bly by 'n skapwagter. Kwaad, as hulle man praat die regte ding, wat se nou ons praat jy? Maar ek het geweet, dit was soos 'n eier wat ek, soos 'n bergskop wat in die grond gebêre het en gebly droom het, eendag. By die oom het ek geleer, as jy die natuur om jou liefhet, dan verander jou binnelandskap. Die natuur verander en jy verander. En as 'n middelplek waar jy mekaar ontmoet. En Op daai middelplek is die plek waar die natuur haar boeke vir jou oopmaak en jou alles wys.
Kom luister, kom luister. The Karoo is a space for reinvention, a space where the silence drowns out all that we have learnt and reminds us of what we have always known. In Sutherland, the South African Large Telescope, or SALT, contemplates the vast infinite space beyond our reach and our imagination. It is a new landmark in this landscape that marks a new dawn for the Karoo.
And so we've come to the end of our Karoo journey here on the icy highlands of Sutherland. And like these giant great eyes, we're prompted to look up into this huge, vast, empty expanse of sky. And I'm reminded of that sand myth where a young girl has an argument with her mom, and in a moment of pique and anger she grabs ash out of a fire and throws it up, and it turns into the Milky Way. And with that I have to find my way back to the N1 and get going. So Salani no Musa, until next time.
This week on SABC Plus.
Yenye kuphelile singesizusabelo manje. Ukuthi akhulume iqiniso.
Ngifisa ukuthi sishintshe i-vibes sibize nge-shipping.
Usabelo baba wengane yakho. Uhambe ethi ungathi uthi unami la emakhazini.
Ngize ngikhulume lento ngaphandle komnene wami. Yavela yacaca bhana ke lento manje.
Are you getting divorced because of infidelity?
Oh, no. What if I never ring us to Bagul was papa because of medical work?
Sango dress lo samali ba wena. La kana kwela brapo ikra sanga. Kitlawa ko kole. Yo.
Afuna ukwazi ukuthi imali yasesola kwade wenza i-high street lapha eTheku ukuthi
This is the slimmest couple undaba ezithi ngalendlela.
I cannot grant bail.
Do what you must, you like the rest.
Watch as the drama unfolds weekdays on SABC Plus. Still home.
A new home for the heart of the nation.
Pittiger as 'n lekker chakalaka braan is na. And we're not taking your money, we're talking your money. More hustle and your timeline.
Unfiltered, unscripted, and totally us. Sauda and Click.
Let's connect on SABC2.
SABC2, Monday to Friday, 4:30 p.m. For more, go to SABC Plus.
Lekker day.